Hi, it's Brendon, the Technology Concierge, and today I'm joined by Andrew Hogden from Currency Select, and we're going to be talking about all things payments. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Brendon. Good to be here.
That's great. Andrew, just to kick us off, would you like to give us a quick overview on Currency Select and what the company does?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Currency Select, we're a company of Global Blue. So we're a leading provider of added value payment solutions across Asia Pacific and Europe. In Australia in particular, we have been a leading acquirer for a number of global hotel chains, some of which have been with us for over 14 years, so a long time, and have implemented a range of payment solutions across major international brands, including the likes of Accor, IHG, Hyatt, and Wyndham, to name a few. So yeah, we offer payment solutions to both merchants and acquirers. So some of those include, a fully integrated payment platform and gateway for hotel and retail, tokenization and 3DS secure solutions to help reduce PCI exposure and fraud, dynamic currency conversion and multi-currency processing, and lastly, white label acquiring with direct links to major card schemes such as Visa, MasterCard, Amex, UnionPay, and Alipay.
That's great. Okay. I think we might drill down into some of those things, like the term acquirer and stuff like that. It's a little bit foreign to me. So I think as we go through our session today, we'll understand a little bit more. We were talking just before we started this, and I said to you, unfortunately, we don't think often about payments. We focus often on guest-facing technology, but at the end of the day, if you can't collect the guest payment for the stay, then everything that you've done up until that point has really been to no value, truly no value, because if you don't get paid, as I say, cash is king, and we'll pick up on that statement later because I don't think it is anymore, true cash. But some of the areas where you are helping hotels with payments is obviously point of sale, front desk, kiosks. Can we chat further about those different areas? And probably if we can take an example of a hotel now that is not using your services and is manual, what are the benefits that they receive from automating that process?
It's quite interesting. So there are a lot of benefits, and a lot of which a lot of hotels out there don't realize because they are so used to their current processes, and I guess in a sense stuck in their ways and don't know any differently. So yeah, as you mentioned, we've got a couple of different payment solutions that serve different purposes. So I guess initially I'll kick off by talking about PMS and POS integration. So, integration between property management systems and point of sale systems to the physical payment device. So a lot of hotels that don't have payment integration, they need to manually check in the guests through the workstation, through their PMS, manually key in the payment, and then pull out the payment device and manually key in the amounts into the terminal. Whereas with integration, that's all seamless, it's all streamlined. So everything is initiated from the PMS or from the point of sale, and it sends the payment directly to the terminal lights up, the guest presents their card. So it's seamless.
Yep.
And look, it's been proven to improve the streamline. In Australia, we have seen that payment integration has significantly improved and streamlined hotel operations by simply just speeding up the payment process.
Yep.
So the front of our house staff no longer need to manually key in the transaction into both the PMS and the terminal, just into the PMS. Like I said, everything is driven from the workstation, which ultimately reduces the margin of error as well, right? So it's quite easily done to enter an extra zero on the payment terminal, and all of a sudden be refunding the guest $1,000 when it was only meant to be $100.
Whereas vice versa is probably worse.
Payment integration, all that's driven from the workstation.
Yep. If you charge a guest $100 when you were meant to charge them $1,000, they're not going to come back and give you that $900.
That's exactly right, and I'm sure the hotel will be hearing about it on TripAdvisor. That the hotel overcharged them, and then obviously when you factor in refunds, if it's not done on the same day. So same day is normally a void, and that can typically happen quite instantaneously. However, if it's a refund, obviously, as you probably know, it can take 4 or 5 days. And I'm sure within that 4 or 5 days, you've got the guests picking up the phone, calling the hotel, chasing up where their money is, which isn't ideal for anybody involved.
Yep.
So I guess just to touch on the guest experience as well. So for them, whilst they don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes and, what the front of house staff are doing, all the guest is doing is presenting their card or their phone to pay using their preferred method of payment. And that's it.
Yep.
So the front of house staff initiate the transaction from the PMS, sends it to the payment terminal. They pass the payment terminal to the guest. They tap their card, transaction done.
Excellent. And obviously, so that is with the guest in front of you, but you're coming up with solutions now that will allow the guest to, in a sense, pre-authorize before they arrive at the hotel. And in a sense, obviously we've talked about it on this program, pre-arrival check-in. So using those technologies as well, you play a part?
Absolutely, yeah. So express check-in and I guess express checkout as well are two areas that have really taken off the past probably 18 months, 2 years. So we offer a lot of, I guess, different channels to accept payments. So one of being e-commerce, right? So we have a range of e-commerce solutions that allow exactly that, to take payments or request payment from the guest prior to arrival. So a perfect example of that would be our Pay by Link solution. So our Pay by Link solution, you may have heard of similar solutions, allows the hotel to send out a 3DS secure link to the cardholder's phone. The cardholder can then follow that link and enter all their payment information and make payments on their device.
Perfect. Okay. Because alternatively now I've seen, unfortunately, some hotels still using paper-based, credit card authorization forms. So they might email the guest a PDF form, but then ask the guest to actually complete it with their details. It'll get emailed back. And then sometimes that may even be printed. And that is, and we'll talk about compliance later, but that's a real big issue from a compliance point of view, having guest credit card details
absolutely
potentially lying around. And then obviously the other, as you said, contactless, pre-arrival, check-in, whatever people want to call it, that's a big one. But we're starting to see the introduction of kiosks as well. And once again, your payment solution is critical to be able to complete that process.
Yeah, and I think when a lot of people hear kiosks, they think of these big chunky ATMs that are sitting in the front desk of a hotel that, aren't exactly very attractive to look at. But now, we work with a couple kiosk providers, one of those being Liverton, based out of New Zealand, who provide the actual kiosk hardware. And obviously there's options for hotels to, get the ATM style kiosk that's, it's freestanding, stands on its own, and they can have that tucked in a corner or somewhere where guests will see that upon arrival. However, now a lot of these kiosks are just simply a HP screen, and a lot of hotels are getting these kiosk solutions built into the actual desk at the front desk of a hotel. So they look quite neat. They can spit out the receipt and room keys. So the kiosks do everything from allowing the guest to check in or make a booking when they arrive. They can go as far to select what room or level they want to stay on. They can add things like breakfast inclusions, and then all before, generating a room key and making payments all on the one device. So, gone are the days of queuing up in the lobby of a hotel. You just got off a long haul flight from overseas, and you walk into the hotel and you see a big queue of people. Now there's kiosks tucked off to the side, and guests can walk up and be, entirely self-sufficient.
Yes. And like most things, I always say, it is a matter of giving the guest the choice. Not everybody is up for self-service. And we've been conditioned, with supermarkets that if you want to go through the traditional checkout, that's fine. If you want to do it yourself, that's also fine. And I think as hoteliers, we need to follow that same line of logic, because people do, I hear hoteliers say, the front desk is a really important contact point. I think it is. But it doesn't have to be the place where the check-in is done. That can be done before the guest arrives at the hotel. And then the front desk can be that truly welcome point where the guest services agent actually welcomes the guest, makes eye contact, hands over the key, tells them about the property, rather than, head down tapping away at a keyboard.
And I think that's an important point, right? There's obviously different groups and perhaps generations of people that prefer different methods of checking in, right? So I'm sure there's some generations out there, I won't say older generations, that prefer, that face-to-face interaction. I mean, that's part of the experience of going to a hotel, is having somebody do everything for you, right?
Yep.
But then I guess, the younger generations, and obviously the world we live in is more, technology is a lot more advanced, and these days the options are endless. We all have access, or the majority of us have access to a mobile phone. So I think just having those options to present to your guests, because the reality is you're going to have younger generations saying that would probably prefer to do everything via their phone. You may have some other generations or groups of people that want that interaction. They may not speak very good English, and they want to walk up to the front desk and still have that interaction. But having something like a self-serve kiosk or having a mobile check-in solution frees up those front desk staff to cater to those people that still want to come up to the front desk.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I actually say that, the high tech can actually lead to a more high touch situation if it's done properly. And like anything, it does need to be done properly. That's a good segue into, I suppose, I mentioned before, cash is king. Really, it's not anymore. You shouldn't use yourself as an example, but I've very rarely actually got physical cash in my wallet these days. If I have a wallet at all, everything is now done, pretty much from my point of view via the mobile phone. So what different payment methods are guests now using, and how are you helping hotels to cater for that?
So I think it's probably quite obvious to your point that, there's not many people that carry cash anymore. So there is a huge push for contactless payment methods. So mobile payment methods and mobile wallets such as Apple Pay, Google Pay, and then you've got, international mobile wallets such as Alipay and WeChat Pay. That's how everybody's paying. And if you don't accept those contactless payment methods, then it could be the difference between a guest staying at your property or walking down the road to another property that accepts, those payment methods. So we, I guess an initiative of ours the last 18 months is to support as many of those payment methods as possible. So, obviously, your traditional payment methods, I guess plastic, as we call them, so Visa or MasterCard, physical cards, all that, just goes without saying. You can chip and pin when you arrive at the property, you can tap your card, and then obviously we've got the support for those mobile payment methods as well. Alipay and WeChat Pay, so they're two big mobile payment wallets in the Chinese market. So I guess over the last 18 months in Australia in particular, the uptake of the payment methods hasn't been, as high, and simply because nobody's been traveling. So we definitely, I guess, anticipate there to be more of a push to accept those payment methods in the future. And to be quite frank, there's probably a lot of hotels out there that don't even know you can accept, QR code payments such as Alipay and WeChat Pay. And so that is the way of capturing those payment methods as well. Well, at least, the initiative we've taken is our payment terminals have a built-in camera that actually scans the QR code of one of those mobile payment wallets, so Alipay or WeChat Pay. The guest walks in with their phone. Again, another contactless payment method. They present their phone, which generates the QR code. The payment terminal scans that, and it's all sent back to the PMS.
That's exceptional. Yeah, I totally agree. Over the last couple of years, we haven't had the need, but hopefully it won't be long before we've got lots of international guests back, and things like Alipay will definitely be required. The other thing that we touched on at the start was obviously compliance. That's a really big one, PCI compliance. Now, I suppose the first thing is we should define what PCI actually means, and what does it take to be PCI compliant?
It's a good question. So, and yeah, again, it's probably not something that's commonly known, but so PCI is a set of security standards formed in 2004 by Visa, MasterCard, Discover, JCB International, and American Express. So the compliance scheme aims to secure credit and debit card transactions against theft and fraud. So I guess I'll start off with some classic examples based off my experience of, I guess, non-PCI compliant practices. And obviously I won't name and shame any hotels or customers that we've worked with. But, things like you mentioned earlier, capturing credit card information on an express check-in form when a guest arrives at the hotel and then storing that on a desk. I mean, I'm sure that just goes without saying that that's not very secure. And we have seen in the past where even, credit card numbers are written down on an express check-in form that's left on the front desk, and a guest may check in and see that form sitting on the desk, and I think you can probably guess where I'm going with that. But yeah, it isn't very secure, and then obviously that puts not only the cardholder at risk, but also the hotel at risk for not having measures in place to protect their guest credit card information. So I guess the way that we, combating such challenges with, payment integration, other solutions, one of which is tokenization. Yeah. So, a lot of hotels, when they hear tokenization, they get a little bit nervous because, they're very used to having access to the full card number, and they think, well, if we don't have access to the full card number and we only have a token, how do we process a refund, or how do we void the transaction? What a lot of hotels don't realize is that tokenization, that token is just replacing the credit card number. So in an integrated payments world, for example, the PMS will store that token, and then any subsequent transaction, whether it be, a completion or a charge or a void or a refund, that token is used to process that particular transaction. So we provide a fully hosted tokenized platform. So we encrypt the credit card data at a terminal level. So
okay.
The terminal encrypts the data, which is then sent back to us. So we're not sending the full card number from the payment terminal to our hosted environment. We're actually sending an encrypted message, and then our host and our token vault actually fully tokenizes that credit card number and stores that on our system, which is obviously PCI compliant, and then sends the token back to the PMS, and then that token is stored. Some other measures as well, particularly in an e-commerce space. So obviously there's tokenization there as well, but with e-commerce, a lot of our solutions offer what we call 3DS Secure, which is essentially two-factor authentication, right? So as you'd probably know, I'm assuming you mentioned before that you have your card on your mobile phone. I would assume if you went to log into your bank or pay for things on certain websites, that once you enter your credit card number, you'll then be redirected to your issuing bank to enter a code that's sent to your phone. So 3DS Secure is essentially doing that. So the guest will enter their credit card number, and then they have to, it redirects to the issuing bank's website, and then they send that code to their phone. So it's highly unlikely that somebody has access to somebody's credit card and the phone number they have registered against that card. So what that does for a hotel is significantly reduce their risk to fraudulent chargebacks from banks. And I guess just in general, reduces fraudulent activity.
Makes sense. And just picking up on that tokenization point again, because you're right, I think a lot of hoteliers are concerned that once the card has been tokenized, then they can't see it. And you're right, you don't see it as a credit card number anymore, but you can process transactions against it, as you said. Is there any way, if they needed to untokenize it, let's just say, heaven forbid, but the police came and said, we believe that a credit card that was used at your property is now, been involved in certain instances, we need those details from you. The hotel would make contact with Currency Select and you could provide that. Is that how it would work? Or
part of our PCI, I guess, regulations and obligations is that we don't provide full credit card information. In a particular case like that where law enforcement is involved, obviously they would take the appropriate approach with us to request that information. There's no other scenario where that information would be passed on to just anybody. Without getting too technical, so with our integrated solution, you have different transaction types, and one of the things in particular with tokenization is we have two transaction message types. One is what we call a get token, where essentially you're sending off a credit card number to be tokenized and return a token.
Yep.
And get pan, which reaches out to our host and pulls back full credit card number. Now, where that is used is with, some hotels or majority of hotels will have other systems integrated to their property management system. So, for example, a central reservation system, certain central reservation systems don't support tokens and only support the uploading of a full card number.
Yep.
So in that scenario, the integrated solution can reach out to us for the PAN, pull that back and upload that into such systems as a central reservation system.
Understand, but it's not in plain sight. And so you don't have those issues, as you said, of a credit card number being lying around and accessible to anyone.
That's correct. It's all done behind the scenes. And as I mentioned earlier, on the actual payment terminal, the payment terminal has the smarts to encrypt the credit card number at the terminal. And then the actual message that's coming back to us for tokenization is that encrypted message. So there isn't the visibility of that card number, even in that message. And then I guess from a hotel point of view, so they don't have the full card number anywhere. So within their PMS, they may have visibility of the truncated PAN, so they might have the last 4 digits and the associated token. And then the receipts that print from our terminal, for example, will have the token and the last 4 digits. So if a hotel's requesting that a guest represent their card, they can still marry up the last 4 digits to make sure that it's the same card. But in doing the whole tokenization of card data, we're actually removing that from PCI scope. So each hotel, and I mean the majority of people that work in hotels may not know this, but their IT teams are likely filling out an annual, I guess, security PCI health check, where essentially they're going through there's a whole heap of questions and they're going through all their solutions and, basically checking for any vulnerabilities. So with implementing solutions such as PMS and point of sale integration, e-commerce, where, as I mentioned, we've got 3DS Secure, they don't have the credit card information stored anywhere.
Yeah.
So 3DS Secure, the guest is entering their card information. They've got the 2-factor authentication with their bank. Again, the full card number's not being passed on to the hotel. A guest checking in that presents their card, again, their card number is being tokenized. So the guests can also have the peace of mind and reassurance that their card information isn't being stored or shared with anybody else as well.
Yep, that's great. So Andrew, as we sort of begin to wrap up, if a hotel is not taking advantage of, I suppose first step, as you said, is integrating between the terminal and the property management system, is that a complex thing to achieve? How long would it take? Is it a project that they need to start working on and take them a couple of months, or is it something that you can really get done in a couple of weeks? And is it expensive to do that?
It's scary. A lot of hotels think it's scary. Look, it's short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah.
To answer your question, look, it's not hard, but I wouldn't say it's easy either. So obviously, there's some time and effort that needs to go into implementing these solutions, like anything. But, I think if you look at the benefits to, the hotel operations and also your guest experience, I think the benefits outweigh, the negatives of, yeah, sure, there will obviously be an investment cost into, maybe upgrading systems, integration. You require a particular version of a PMS or a point of sale system in order to upgrade to these payments. So there's definitely considerations to be made. But again, in the long run, once the solution is implemented, that's it. These solutions are robust. I mean, like I said, in Australia, we've implemented these solutions at, major hotel chains such as Accor, IHG, Hyatt, Wyndham as well. So they're out in the market. So even if hotels, have some hesitation, there's hotels out there that they can reach out to and speak to about their experience and find out exactly, what they went through. But I mean, at the end of the day, providing that, the cost is obviously a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
But in terms of the actual implementation, we could be talking, maybe a week of, having the relevant parties come in and do the relevant upgrades and get everything live. But at the end of the day, for, 1 week of potentially doing a little bit of running around, and probably more so the IT people than anybody else, everybody's going to benefit. The hotel, the guests, yeah, it's beneficial for everybody involved.
Yep, understand. Okay, that makes sense. So as we said, obviously PMS integration to your solution, and then probably your solution to their existing bank or something. So there's those two integrations that are required. And from a PMS point of view, as you said, they may need to be on a slightly more updated version or something like that. But it could be that they're on the right version. They just need that integration to a solution such as yours.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, we have a couple of options, and I guess more recently we've just launched what we call our middleware solution, which essentially bridges a PMS or point of sale to a payment terminal, right? So it sits in between, and it's essentially an interface that talks between the PMS and point of sale and the terminal. So providing that you've got the latest version of the PMS or point of sale, we have the ability to interface into various PMS and point of sale vendors. So regardless of who a hotel's with, they don't necessarily need to be with anybody in particular. There is opportunity there. So it doesn't matter if it's a major hotel with, I don't know, 400 rooms or smaller country motel that only has 30 rooms. There is the opportunity to improve their processes regardless of how big hotel operations are.
Yep, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, so just one other point. For hotels in particular, back-end operations and procedures, another key area, that hotels are looking at improving. So particularly for, night audit, finance teams that are responsible for, end-of-day reconciliation. At the moment, a lot of hotels that are manual, well, those processes that are done on the back end are very manual as well, right? So hotels where, they're running these offline standalone solutions, it is very manual with, the finance or the night audit person going around at night and tearing off the audit report from each terminal. It's time consuming. Whereas with the integration, we offer a great merchant portal where hotels can log into to view reporting, real-time transaction data, and also cancel pre-auths, which if we had more time, we could probably go on for that, but that may be another whole series for you on pre-auth.
Okay.
But yeah, so what I'm alluding to is, our merchant portal offers, I guess, a great opportunity for, these back-end teams as well to make reconciliation a lot easier. So a lot of our reporting that we generate at the end of the day essentially saves the need to go around to the payment terminals and tear off the audit report. Everything's emailed, available in the portal. So, you can easily go in and check on a transaction if you need to, and view and download reports as well.
It makes sense. I started part of my term at the hotel was night audit. Yeah, and that verification process, as you said, if you are manually entering the amount on the guest balance into the terminal, there has to be a verification done at some point. If it's automatically sent directly to the terminal, then there is no need. It can't be wrong. So that in itself would save a great deal of time, I would assume.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think with the integration, the way that I guess our sales pitch to hotels is essentially view your PMS or point of sale and your terminal as one. Whatever you've processed via the PMS or the point of sale is essentially what's going to be processed on the payment terminal. And, furthermore, if they want to check on these transactions, as I mentioned, they can leverage the merchant portal where they can quite easily just log in and check on a transaction. And that's quite useful, for back office and, finance teams as well, to have that remote access to what's going on at the front desk or in food and beverage as well, particularly if you're, having a guest call up and complain or query a charge to their account.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Andrew, before we go, any final thoughts or wisdom that you'd like to share?
Good question. I don't know about wisdom. I don't think I'm old enough to have too much wisdom. But
On credit,
I think on credit cards. Not life advice. Yeah, look, I think it is in a sense an untapped area for those within the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think a lot of hotels, and mind you, like I said, we've done a lot of great work with a lot of hotel groups the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yep.
And there's a lot of hotels out there that have some, pretty neat solutions that are really improving their guest experience. And I think the message is that there's solutions out there, and a lot of solutions of which we offer, that can significantly improve not only hotel operations, but also the guest experience. And I mean, at the end of the day, the guest experience is what I assume most hotels are all about, improving ratings and getting more and more guests to come back to the hotel. And, particularly after a very long time of not many people traveling and going to hotels, whilst we're seeing occupancy, pick up across a lot of our merchants, things probably aren't back to 100% how they used to be. So during this time, now's the time to start looking at these solutions, implementing the solutions, having the conversation, so that, once we see that influx of travelers coming back to Australia, hotels are prepared.
That's a great point. I think two things on that. It's not as complex as you would think, and you and I discussed that. A lot of hoteliers are not necessarily aware of the technology and the benefits it can deliver. So in that sense, can they reach out to Currency Select and have a conversation at any point about their operation and how Currency Select can help? Is that something that you guys are happy to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even if it's just a conversation, right? We're more than happy to share our knowledge. I mean, I've been with the business almost 8 years. So, I mean, I guess I know a little bit, but there's a lot of people within the business that, have been with the business for 20 plus years. So a long time. So, and within that time, comes experience. And we really understand, the hospitality sector in particular. I mean, and I guess the stats speak for themselves. We've got, 60% or over 60% of the market share in Australia. The groups that we're working with, I do believe, I guess without sounding too corny, that our reputation does speak for itself. Yeah, to answer your question, we're more than happy to, have hotels reach out to us and at least, understand, well, for us to understand what they're currently doing. And then from there, we can, help them understand, well, we've got this, and this solution that would give you this. Yeah, if it's something that's of interest, then yeah, we would give them the sales pitch and go from there.
Fantastic. Well, that's what this series is all about. It's really trying to help hoteliers understand that, technology is out there. Technology is actually our friend. If it's used properly, it will enhance the guest experience. It's not designed to replace staff. It's actually designed to take some of that workload, that we talked about night audit a moment ago. There are probably other things that person can do rather than going through and, manually checking that everybody who checked out today, the report on that and the terminal actually balance. So I think it's a great thing. Andrew, really appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience does as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brendon. That was good to be on here, and yeah, it was great to have the opportunity to chat. And yeah, like you said, we're more than happy for hotels to reach out to us to have a conversation and see how we can help you.
Thanks, Andrew.